What was so devastating about this 32 is that any one of the 32 was capable of winning the number one seed. Every bot here is amazing. Like, they were working so well. We've had 32s before where some people get in and their bots like crumble right at the last moment.
Right.
And it never felt this way.
Today, we're talking with BattleBots executive producer and showrunner Aaron Catling and the bot whisperer himself, Peter Abrahamson.
On this episode,
Behind the Battle.
So, Aaron, do you have a favorite fight that you've ever matched?
Favorite fight?
Uh-huh.
Wow,
You can't even tell me you have not thought of this.
Man, it's, you know what? It's kind of like my children. It's kind of like asking which one of my kids I love the most. The one that I'll never forget was Witch Doctor versus Tombstone in season 1.
Ooh.
Just because it was so kinetic and so beautifully robotically violent. Like, I instantly ran around. I took a photo on my phone of the moment of impact, and I just would run. I sent it to everyone in my phone, every TV exec at every other network, whatever. I was like, look at what we just did. This is a TV show and it's going to be incredible.
That's such a good answer. Oh my gosh. But that's what it takes to ignite something like that. Like, there's always that moment where you go, oh, we might have done something.
I really want to see fights the most evenly matched that's going to come out. Like, you just never know who's going to pull the win out. Like, there was a fight a few seasons back, which was Yeti and the Lockjaw. They just would not let up. Nobody paying attention to how blackened their eye was or how much blood's coming out of their nose. They just kept beating on each other. Mm-hmm. And it was one of my favorite fights of all time, is to watch something like on that level.
How'd you feel about the bots that made it to the top 8 this season?
I mean, it's just an incredible top 8. I don't want to say it's the best ever, because every year surpasses the other year. And the fact we're going to have a new champion is just incredible.
The fights, like this year, was probably the best fights I've ever seen. The teams have never been at this pro level operating wise. And like, how they do things in the pits, how they present themselves when they get right there in front of the glass to fight their robot, and how they actually fight their robot. This has been one of the most amazing seasons to watch. What was so devastating about this 32 is that any one of the 32 was capable of winning the number one seed. Every bot here is amazing. Like, they were working so well. We've had 32s before where some people get in and their bots like crumble right at the last moment.
Right.
And it never felt this way.
Of the top 8, would you have ever matched any of those 8 robots outside of the championship?
100%. I mean, I definitely think the world wants to see Hydra and Blip fight. I think there's a very fun kind of battle of the flippers. It was kind of back in the day when it was Bronco and Hydra. I always wanted to have those two together. It was almost like is there going to be a passing of the torch, you know? And the great thing is Jake isn't giving up his torch easy, and Aaron's just wanting to take it. Yeah. And I actually think the great thing for the sport is we've got 2 alpha flippers, which is they're going to be at the top of the Apex Predator list for a long time, both Hydra and Blip, which is great.
Talk to us about the fight between Witch Doctor and Tantrum.
You know, both were such good driving. Like, I mean, Mike is an amazing driver. Mm-hmm. His skill at drifting race cars obviously plays through into Witch Doctor and how you see it drive. But you couldn't get under Tantrum. Tantrum just outdrove and out-undered Witch Doctor.
Witch Doctor seemed to get hit like really early on. It got high-centered on something.
Yeah.
And it couldn't really move. And I just kind of wanted to see like kind of what your thoughts on that. What was going on in your head when that was happening?
I think the bottom of the chassis is now aluminum. And so I don't remember if there was a big piece that got peeled from being under or over the top of Tantrum. But if something lands on it, it can get that to sort of do that nasty ripping of the underside. And I think it sort of peeled a chunk off. Right. And that was part of the high centering that got under Witch Doctor.
Do you have any ideas on how BattleBots could potentially evolve in the future? Like places we might go considering like upgrades, like to the rules, to the the robots, like new avenues of new kinds of robots, like any upgrades you see in the future?
I think that's one of the greatest things about BattleBots is it is constantly evolving. So this year we've had the upper deck. Some people think it worked well, some people didn't like it. Things like the out of the arenas by the doors, which were kind of meant to be out of bounds, and so you couldn't do it deliberately, but then it happened non-deliberately, and so that was a bit awkward for people. They're like, why weren't people disqualified? And it was, it's the devil in the detail with BattleBots. It's those little gray areas that catch you. So you always just trying to modify them, And I think sometimes that people get confused. We care about the sport more than anything. The TV show is at its best when we're showing the sport at its truest. So we're not in the business of manipulating the things for TV. We just want the sport to exist and be in its natural form, and we'll make the best TV show we can out of that. And so I think we're still in that evolutionary process, but I think we've come a long way.
Do you have any hopes and dreams for the future of BattleBots?
Yeah, that we have a live show in Vegas that's nightly, that we come in maybe twice a year and do a full television show, and that we have regional spin-off events or maybe places like Norwalk or Motorama can have a bigger arena to have bigger robots that can then be the junior league to feed up to the pros.
I have one yes or no question. Is there any chance in the future we would see real steel type, like stand-up humanoid boxing robots? Yes or no?
Yes, but it doesn't really exist right now. That's the whole Boston Dynamics walking, that's why we have things like a walker bonus. Like we're trying to get to that point, right? Everyone wants that real steel thing. But as I learned back in the day, it's actually not the best fighting machine there is. Like when you think about it, the human body and how we move is actually very brittle for combat. A Volden Overlord that was in season 2 was probably the most humanoid-ish one we've ever had. And it was fantastic. I loved it and I had a great fight with Warhead back in the day, but it's not going to be taken home with Giant Nut anytime soon.
Trey's been wanting humanoid robots with Satrakian and Donald to build them for years. Now with what's going on at Boston Dynamics,
backflips and such.
They could probably do something horrible. I mean, you've seen Japanese Robo 1 stuff, right? With, robots that are about 12 inches tall. Fully humanoid, that walk and then fight. Yeah. I mean, they can do it at that scale, but it gets much harder the more weight you keep adding. It just gets more and more difficult.
But one day, here's the great thing. There's probably a 12-year-old out there right now at school in Alabama who is like, just wait 4 or 5 years until I'm on BattleBots and I bring Alfred or whatever his name might be.
Alfred would do something like that. Oh God. Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you. I can throw it months. Peter, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. You have been so amazing. I have enjoyed this interview so much, and we've learned so much. And I hope you feel like you've gotten to share some of your story.
It's so good. Thank you. That was a real pleasure.
Thanks for watching this season of Behind the Battle. But stay tuned for exclusive unboxing videos with Hypershock and Rusty. See you next time.